Hello, everybody. This is Robin Dean with The Writing Obsession. I'm here with Travis Burleson, co-founder.
Hello.
We just attended the 2015 Progressive Auto International Motorcycle Show at, what was it, Rosemont?
The Donald D. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois, located conveniently by O'Hare Airport.
Which you actually used to work right there, right?
Yeah, I used to work across the street at one of the big hotels.
I know that the line right there in this photo that we're looking at right now, that I know people can't see this, but I swear that's my doppelganger right there. So yeah, as we walked in, I was pretty entertained by the slot car track. I thought that was pretty cool. I heard a guy next to me talking about how, basically they set up a slot car track that was for slightly oversized motorcycles. It was a large 3-lane track that did a full figure 8. And I heard one guy rolling by talking about how, he used to do model trains, which I used to be a big fan of when I was a kid. And so this really caught my eye, and they even had the stats up top. I thought that was a really good way to introduce everything for the kids, especially since there were obviously a lot of strollers around.
And the big kids. Well, you had you had to do it like you could win a prize. Like,
what was the prize?
A cheap Progressive branded stuff, I think, and maybe like one big prize. Because I talked to some of the Progressive girls, and they were like, "Oh, there's like a spin the wheel sort of thing. Like, oh, you have to like do the race, and then how you finish in the race determines which wheel you get to spin. So if you win the race, I guess you get a better prize."
So you win an opportunity to take an opportunity at winning something else.
Yes.
Oh, that's wow, it's a champion maneuver on that.
Yeah, I think it was a little complicated. Last year, you just went up and spun the wheel, and you got like sunglasses or a chapstick or a tote bag or something. So.
Yeah, and we had the tote bag. I know we were throwing a lot of pamphlets into that.
Yeah.
We did a lot of writing on that. And the very first thing I saw, actually, believe it or not, the first thing I saw when I walked in was Tony from Analog Motorcycles here in the Galena area. Where am I at? I'm in Libertyville, and he is just north of me. His Indian, there it is, his 1920s Indian cafe racer, he is in upwards of a $75,000 bike that's been completely rebuilt and customized with all kinds of brass trimmings. Somebody kept throwing money at it.
Yeah.
That easily, hands down, would have gotten my vote had I voted for anything that was on the level.
You're a bad American.
I'm a bad American. But that is a gorgeous bike. And then just past it, very first thing I know I was drawn to was, because I am the current owner of a large Suzuki, I went straight to the Suzuki section. And the new GSX-R, good-looking bike. I have this photo here with Rich Scheidlich, who is going for a land speed record in the next year. I don't know. I just saw the signature colors of their Gixxer and thought I need to ask them about the other GSX models, which was particular to my personal favorite niche, which would be road bikes, luggage equipped. And it seems that, let's see.
What was that, the GSX-F?
The GSX-F is...
It's like the naked Street Fighter-y one, right?
It is. And so what I have is a GSF 1200 second generation from 2003. And then that became the GSX FA, which was, it was basically it developed in the sport touring direction with, more aerodynamic headlight, and it was based on the same engine, but it came with factory luggage that was absolutely gorgeous. And they continue to make that luggage, unlike with my bike. This apparently... the GSX S 1000. They're not doing a 1200. The photo we have here is of a prototype version in their signature blue.
Yeah, that's the Street Fighter-y one. So it's kind of reminds me of like the SV before they made it look ugly.
Yeah,
but it doesn't have clip-ons. Doesn't
now
have
you
a full
say
fairing.
that. You say the SV looks ugly. They made the SV look
yeah,
ugly.
the new one, the Gladius, and then they realized they took the SV, which was a great bike, made it look ugly, called it the Gladius, it's the same motor, and then they realized Gladius was a stupid name, and now they call it the SVF, but they haven't made it look better yet.
No, that's not the one where they made the transition to the square tube some time ago. This is a completely different animal.
Yeah, it's all kind of weird and bubbly looking. I mean, so you might it's kind of a love it or hate it, I guess, sort of styling, but it's that Street Fighter sport bike chassis, but with regular handlebars, a little bit more relaxed foot pegs. That's what the GSX S that we're looking at is.
Yeah, I'm past the 90s, so anything bubble and oval is pretty much out for me. But this the bike we're looking at right here isn't a 15; it's a 16. I don't know if they told you that.
Okay, yeah. So that's not actually out yet. Maybe they're gauging reactions.
It's not even in
It's
production.
probably in Europe.
Yeah, and what I found, yeah, maybe GSX S 1000. They're not doing a 1200, and politely enough, they pulled me aside after I mentioned an interest in luggage, got my information, and they had said that the guy that was in charge of that particular bit of the show expressed that he had the ability to contact those in charge who are taking notes on what people mention about the bike. And what's particular to me is I want hard luggage. I want a comfortable sport bike. I'll probably get something full fairing eventually someday, and something that blocks wind and has full luggage for long distance touring. And they don't have luggage for this yet, nor do they have one for the actual release, which they had in flat black. This right here, that's the same bike. It's a really nice profile.
It's a tough looking, street fighter.
That is the 15, which doesn't look much different.
Oh, it's a little less. It doesn't have the the sport skirt on the bottom. But yeah, I could see where that they could put a little more plastic on it and make it more touring friendly. Well, because I think in the literature too it says sport tour, but they don't have luggage.
Yeah, which is confusing. I mean, it's an undefined genre. We picked a niche that it's not a manufactured label, really. This caught my eye. I thought this was great. This is the GW250. Is this a brand new model altogether?
No, that's been out for a couple years. I forget which one came first, because now as a show they had two. There was just one. I think the GW250.
They were both 250s.
Yeah, and then they have like the 250F. So one is kind of a naked, and the other they got more fairing and a windshield on it.
Right, and that's a great entry level. I mean, that just as an entry bike, that's kind of cool. If you're making the transition from a naked bike, which I personally feel everybody should start with a naked bike, just because it's as close to a bicycle as you're going to get with a motor on it.
Yeah, well, it depends. I mean, if you're really going to be commuting and you live in anywhere but Southern California, the one with a bit more fairing on it and the windshield might do you better. If you're going to be riding in, cold weather or a little bit of fog or something.
Alaska.
Yeah.
I'm all, Antarctic. And the one you're talking about is this right here. That's the naked version.
Yeah. The only thing wrong with this bike is the fender. It's got this big clunky, Busa looking fender on it on this little 250, and it totally looks out of place. Otherwise, I think the styling's good. I like the way the turn signals are integrated into the bodywork there on the edge of the gas tank.
Oh yeah,
that's super clean. I know, a lot of the test rides compared to a current competitor like the CBR or the Ninja 250 or 300. Now they bumped those up to 300. It's heavier and slower and less of a sport bike. But if you're a beginner and you're looking for a commuter or a starter bike, maybe you don't want a sporty seating position, which the CBR and the Ninja have, and this has more of it's definitely a standard motorcycle,
which actually stands out compared to the TU 250 there, which I've heard. I mean, I'm still an entry-level mechanic at best. I've been riding for 5 years. I've been getting my hands dirty, making my mistakes, going along in the motions. But I see the TU 250 there, and I've only heard that it's nothing short of a disaster in so many directions.
Really? I think it seems pretty. I mean, it's a single. It's a little vibey. If you like that classic styling, it's good. If you want something more modern, though, this I think is a modern standard. This is your best solution. Plus, this is a twin, so it's a little revier than the single is.
Oh, is the TU 250 a single?
TU 250 is a single, yeah. They're both fuel injected. This has good starter. The GW 250 has good, it has a 6-speed transmission. It has a gear position indicator in the dash. The dash on it's quite nice.
The TU 250 has a 6-speed. You said.
The GW 250. Yeah, the one we're looking at now. Yeah, has a 6-speed. And it has a gear position indicator. So I think it's a really a good bike. I mean, it's a little. If you are a rider, you're going to find it kind of slow, kind of heavy, kind of basic, but that's what it is. I think if you were looking at a Nighthawk 250, which both of our wives ride a Nighthawk 250, this is the modern equivalent to that, where it's not super sporty, but it's comfortable and it's reliable. And with this, you get fuel injection.
Oh, wow. See, now that's fantastic. It's a good-looking bike.
Yeah. I think both versions are good-looking, the naked and the faired one.
Yeah, agreed. What's up here? Another angle on it. Let's see.
you know, I mean, you can definitely see where it's a beginner bike. Like the switch gear and the handlebars are not, you know, not $20,000 bike level. I mean, it's cheap kind of ish, but it's an inexpensive bike. So
Yeah, no, making a transition. I walked over. I don't know how I ended up skipping so far ahead, but I may have gone past the booths and seen KTM. This may have been a little bit of a highlight to my trip to the show. As I walk up to, this is not the KTM dealer. This is an aftermarket KTM service. And
yeah, it was the KTM dealer in Woodstock. So it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't the corporate booth. It was a dealer booth.
Exactly, and so I walk up and I see a great bike, and I decide in my amateurish way I'm going to take a knee and take a photo of the motorcycle, and I hear a whistle and a snap, and all of a sudden these two ladies appeared out of nowhere. The KTM models for Wisconsin just show up and pose right next to the motorcycle. Made a really great shot, and it's a good looking bike. I guess.
Is this the Duke 690 or is this the Super Duke?
That's a good question. I'm not really sure. I know that they had. I wish I could move that tag that's in front of me right there. But I remember that my friend Neil Sullivan, who has written for BMW in the past, he really was kind of blown away by the fact that the frame was painted. And I don't know if KTM does that by default or if this is a pull-apart revamp, but it looks freaking sharp. Either way, amazing bike. And I know that one particular Polish friend of mine, one Andrew, I can't pronounce his last name, he is going to drool for this particular series of photos, as he owns an earlier model of the 990, which he's been modifying to death. And I mean, even the older models from years past, they make a glass clutch cover. I don't know if you've ever seen that on a bike, but basically it's just a destruction-proof glass that you sort of fasten on the side, and you can see all the fluids rolling around while the clutch operates. So it's kind of sticking it to Ducati and saying you don't really have to do an open clutch. You can always just do glass.
Yeah, well, too, if you're actually going to ride it on the street and not just on the track, you don't want to get all that street gunk in your clutch.
Yeah, it is a moving part, right?
Yeah.
It's your turn. Tell me what you're looking at here. Now, I know that's the 990. That is the Super Duke.
Yeah, it's actually, isn't it bigger now?
It is. So is it 1,100 or 1,000 or something?
That's the 1290. 1290 Super Duke. Yeah.
So it's just like a Street Fighter 1300 is basically what we're talking about.
2-cylinder, 75-degree. It's 1,300 cc's.
It's a 650 twin. That is a monster bike right there. I bet you that. Wow, beautiful.
Yeah, that's the one. I don't even remember when that there was like a video going out when that was still in prototype, and it's basically just 2.5 minutes of a guy burning out around an airport.
I remember that. I saw that. It's got a natural. I mean, they really took everything that hipsters are trying to bring to cafe racers and just made it a modern bike and said, "Here you go."
I mean, it's really just a hooligan death machine.
It is.
I mean,
it's a beautiful thing.
It's the trellis frame, giant V-twin motor, and slick tires, and that's it. It's just a motor and wheels to make you go spin out and crash, and
you will go in every which way you want extremely quickly,
except straight.
Now the Triumph, this was hidden in the back corner on day one. Triumph. There were two Triumph bikes being given away. One was a Speed Triple. The other is this Triumph Daytona. I signed up to get this bike, and I ended up signing up for the Triple because that's how I am. I didn't pay attention. I wanted to sign up to get the Daytona, and here we are with my application, which I still haven't heard back from. Go ahead and call me. I'm ready to pick that bike up whenever you let me know. That's a good-looking bike, though.
Yeah, it was the Triple 1090 and the Daytona, which are both good-looking bikes. I wouldn't mind. I mean, they may be a little sporty for me because I'm tall, and I'd be tight. I'd be sore after about 40 minutes on one of those.
Okay, this is all your show right here. We're looking at the Kawasaki Versus.
Yes, I went to the Kawasaki booth. Well, I test rode a Versus, the last generation Versus 650 in the fall, and really liked it. It was actually when I got my BMW, it was one of the bikes I was looking at, and the BMW sort of came my way before a Versus came my way. And in retrospect, I kind of, as much as I love my BMW, I kind of wish I would have gotten a Versus just because they still make them, and there's more parts available, and there's more aftermarket for it. But yeah, this 2015, they finally brought over the Versus 1000, which has been in Europe. It's on the list of good European bikes. So
what do we have before then?
Just the Versus 650.
Okay, so the America only got the 650.
Yeah, we only had the 650, which is basically a 650 Ninja on stilts. Like it's the same motor and a similar chassis design as the Ninja 650, but it's got 5 inches of suspension, and came with a little windshield. The first generation, the older one, or the first two, kind of had love it or hate it styling with a sort of stacked headlight. And for 2015, and the Versus 1000 which was only available in Europe, had a similar styling cue. But for 2015, they sort of gave it a more Ninja-esque styling cue with a little more fairing and dual headlights and more windshield. And then they brought the 1000 over to the United States, which is the same as the KX 1000, KZ 1000.
Yeah, the KZ 1000. This definitely has that same robust.
Yeah, it's the KZ 1000. It's the same engine. They retune it a little bit to give it more mid-range grunt. So it's kind of got more of a linear torque pull, whereas the KZ is it's peaky. It's a sport bike engine. You gotta really get it up over 7,000 RPMs. You get that surge of power, and the
really high power band. Yeah,
the Versus is way flatter. So it's maybe not, you don't get that high rev surge of power, but you get that pull all the way from like 3,000 RPMs.
Definitely fits you. Did it feel comfortable?
Yeah, the bike is super comfortable. Being a taller rider, a lot of the sportier bikes, just I could sit on them for about 40 minutes, an hour, and then I'm just going to my knees are going to start cramping up, and my legs are going to hurt. So, and I look kind of silly. But yeah, the Versus 1000 especially it's a pretty sizable bike. And they only import it in the LT trim, which has comes with the saddlebags. But it's got adjustable windscreen, hand guards. Saddlebags were spacious and really nice. They were integrated mounting points. So how
many liters are we talking?
It's a reasonable amount. I'd have to look up the specs on that. I mean,
they look big.
Full face helmet. You can fit a full face helmet in each pannier. Top case is an option. Once top case comes, it's a GV. GV built luggage, and the top case, if you get it, comes wired for lights.
That could spell trouble for you in the future, though. Take it from me.
If you wire it up right, it's not an issue.
Yeah, or if you go with twisted throttle, which is always good. Let's see here. Okay. The big girl's looking good. I'm talking about the Kawasaki Concourse. Is that the Z1400 or ZG1400? What do they call this?
Just this Concourse 14, right?
Yeah, I think it's C14 is the known moniker, is in shorthand moniker. And in this green, I think she looks really good, but she's still like the confident big girl at prom. She's got the bright green dress, and she knows that she's standing out, but she just looks kind of rocking. And I personally, it's not my bike. It's not my bike to buy. It's not my style. It doesn't have enough of it's not nimble enough in my world, and it's got that enormous wheel span. But all in all, I think it's developing still for the better. It seems to have its good years, its bad years.
Yeah, well, definitely if you want a sport tour, a full-on big sport tour. I mean, that's really the distinction is things that are called sport tour now are like 1,200 cc's and above. It's the Concourse, it's the FJR, it's the R1200 RT, or even sometimes they consider the R1600. Or the K1600
but
in there.
You can back up on that. I'd debate that anything above 800 is the magic number in my mind. Because if you look at the F800...
I'm saying what you're going to see that says sport touring on the sticker.
Screams it, right?
On the sticker. That says this is a sport touring machine. They're all going to be big. You can take sportier bikes that are smaller and make them sport touring bikes. I mean, other than like the F800 GT is probably the only... I mean, who else sells a mid-size bike with a windshield and panniers?
That's a good question. I mean, maybe there are a couple of Suzuki's. It's like making the conversion, which I'm a big fan of making.
But I'm saying, and this is sort of where the maybe not the market as much as the production is going. Is you have the Concourse, the FJR,
production intended.
Yeah, those big displacement, long wheelbase, lots of luggage, long distance sport haulers. But I mean, I think though too, compared to the competition, this is a lot of motor. I mean, the 1400 is just going to rip your arms off. It's not maybe as nimble as the FJR, but
here's a good example. Now let's talk about a short trip sport tourer. This is a Ninja 650 in black gloss, and it seems to me that those are standard position bars. It's got the sexy aerodynamic look, but you get the upright position.
Yeah, I mean the Ninja's always been sort of a I don't want to say a poser sport bike, but it's a standard sport bike, standard position. It's a sporty standard. Like they make it look, it's always been fair. Do you go back to like the ER6 or the ER500, like the old Ninja 500 with that twin or the
GSX
was not a sporty bike.
Yeah, the thing is, it's nimble. I mean, you could probably do things. You're not going to be as forward.
Well, now they are. I mean, they've definitely improved it over the years. But it has that fairing, it has that sport bike look, but with regular handlebars, lower foot pegs. So yeah, you could definitely, like I said, you could basically make this a lower. Like I said, this and the Versus 650 are pretty much the same bike, except the Versus is taller, has a more relaxed seating position. But if you want a sportier seating position, you want to be lower to the ground, you could easily, there's a huge aftermarket and huge following for the Ninja, so you could always put bags on it. I think there's even hard bag options, yeah.
The concept of a conversion, this one kind of fits the bill. I mean, if you're looking for something that's more like a weekend getaway sport tour, something that's not from here to Portland per se, in either direction from here to Chicago, this is a good bike in terms of if I'm going up into Wisconsin, I'm gonna do some riding. I've got my it's not technically vintage yet. I've got my Hawk GT here that I'm gonna start building up, and I'll probably bring that up by you a couple of times just to enjoy in the twisties. But this is a good example of a newer bike that you could probably add luggage to and use for heavier function.
Yeah, the 650 is a really great platform. I said this is maybe the current iteration of a UJM.
Yeah,
it's like
obscure.
It's going to look sporty, but it's got slightly more relaxed ergonomics. So it's still sporty, not full standard. I'd say the Versus is closer than that, but the Versus is kind of the adventure sport category, so it's pretty tall. So if you're not long legged, you might have an issue with the Versus 650, or you can always lower it because that's.
Yeah, you're still one of us.
Yeah, and that's.
Or we could just do this. Let's just get the H2R. We'll just get the H2R and convert it into a commuter bike.
Well, it's
how many horsepower?
Well, the R is not street legal, but it's claimed 300 horsepower.
So yeah, all right.
I mean,
it's cute.
This is this is just basically Kawasaki was like, well, we could get bikini girls and become Ducati, or we can build a supercharged carbon fiber death machine and have people oogle over that instead, which I think was a good idea. I mean, you can get the H2 is the version you can ride on the street, which doesn't have the carbon fiber, and I think the H2 is only like 200 horsepower. It's not as high strung. So that's the one you can buy for an exorbitant amount of money. But for an even more exorbitant amount of money, you can get the H2R. That's track only and 300 horsepower.
To think that Honda, there's that GL, absolutely amazing vintage GL.
I would just because they had, just to go back to the GL for a second, because they had the CB 1100. I don't remember if you remember when that came out. The CB 1100. That was that vintage. It was 1100 cc inline four. It's basically a modern interpretation of an old CB 750, but it's like fuel injected. It looks like a bike from the 70s. And I would love if they took that concept with the flat four and like redid like a naked Goldwing.
Oh yeah, it's due time.
That wasn't they brought back the Valkyrie with 1800 like the current Goldwing engine, the 1800 cc flat six. It's like a power naked cruiser bike based on a Goldwing platform, which is cool if that's your style. But I'd love to see one that looks like a UJM from the 70s with a flat four.
Yeah, modern equivalent with throwback flair is basically.
Yeah, I mean,
keep it injected, stuff like that.
Yeah, injected. But I mean, it was, it's already water cooled, being better forks, better brakes, all that modern stuff, better suspension. But basically take the CB 1100 and just put a flat four in it, and I think that'd be awesome. Right
here, I can't lie. The Honda VFR Interceptor may very well be my next sport tour, and I mean, I get that it is right on the line, just between sport bike and standard motorcycle. But if you're comfortable leaning forward, which luckily I'm a smaller guy, I'm 5'7", then this is a bike that, for me, I can lean forward a little bit without it really doing too much damage to my lower back. And I can tell you if they make a luggage package for this, and I know they do, this is, what a bike, just beautiful. The luggage itself, I think that I've seen it on other VFRs, it's a little bit low. And so low, in fact, that it actually has a divot underneath to shape the exhaust. And that doesn't look right to me. It also looks a little bit hazardous. And, you could probably cook an egg inside the base of it. But if they make it a little bit higher this round, I think that Honda, they might be onto something there with these motorcycles that they're making.
Yeah, well, the VFR making a comeback. I mean, it's always been popular. It's always been a sport touring. I mean, people have always. I mean, that V4 motor just sounds great and has so much low end, grunt to it. It's a great around town bike, and there's always been, a cult following for the VFR, and people have definitely, turned them into sport tours in the past. And I think that the newest iteration of it, is right there with it. I mean, easily, like I said, in that range of mid-sized bikes.
Looks like getting to the engine might be kind of a hassle, though. That looks like a one-piece fairing almost.
Yeah, a couple of bolts and it comes off.
Yeah.
I mean, can't be any worse than my BMW. So
you say it's a four-banger, yeah?
It's a V4, yeah. Yeah, the VFR, classic, V4 growly engine. But yeah, I mean, it's always sort of had that. It's sort of what we were talking about earlier, where if you go by what the manufacturers say is sport touring, you're going to buy a 1200 plus cc long distance. You're not old enough to own the Goldwing yet, sort of bike. But
or an F800 GT.
But but this isn't definitely in that category of mid-sized bikes you can convert.
I like this. I like the simple dial too.
The GSX.
I like the fact it's probably got a digital readout for the speedometer and there's a single dial for the RPMs right in front of you. That's freaking hype.
Yeah, the big analog tack.
There you go. Here's Travis's genre. If for those of you who don't know it already, there are a couple of riders for the site who are very particular to their joy of adventure. What would be some call adventure sport, but really it's just sport touring on steroids. It's the same general bracket. And I used to argue it because I'm personally more attracted to road bikes that are equipped with luggage. By road bike, I mean sport bikes. Luggage-equipped sport bikes. I find them, that they really draw me in. I think that's a lot of fun to me. There's the whole idea of getting from here to California as fast as possible and trying to get a knee down at the same time. Whereas Travis is very familiar with more comfort, things that in a bad situation, if you needed to ride in the dirt, you probably could.
Like if you roll into Dinosaur National Monument at sunset and the campground's down a 5-mile dirt track.
Yeah, that, for example, what did I say? Yeah, you go on ahead. I'll catch up here on my Bandit 1200.
Yeah, but I mean, what we're looking at here, this is the F800 GS. It's really, I mean, I think this is out of the realm of sport. I mean, this is an adventure bike. I mean, you can put road tires on it, and people do, and they ride it as a street bike, but I think that's on the far cusp of it's on the adventure side of the spectrum for sure.
It's just got a huge butt. The thing has got so much luggage action going on. It's intended to protect and survive.
Yeah, well,
it's got its own military base built right in.
Yeah, it's the long way round sort of bike. Where I feel like the Versus is maybe that more adventure sport. Where it's got street wheels on it, or the Multistrada is more adventure sport, where it's got that adventure bike style and flair to it, but it's in the adventure bike ergonomics, but it's really a street bike underneath. Whereas the GSs are adventure bikes
at its heart, at its core.
Yeah.
And of course, the grandpa machine here. We've got the GL, the 1600 BMW 1600 GL.
That's the K. 1600 LT.
There you go.
Luxury Tour. Yes. So that's which did you know it has 6 cylinders? It has 6 cylinders. If you're confused about whether or not it has 6 cylinders, if you look at the side of the engine cases, there's a 6 on it, and when you turn it on, it says 6, and on the dashboard there's a 6. And there's 6 exhaust holes in the exhaust. How do
you activate the cognac snifter? How do you get where's the cognac dispenser with the glass that comes out?
It's BMW, so that's an option.
I'm running a BMW K1600 L2. It's a fantastic bike. I'm gonna beat all of you, huh?
It is a fantastic
Cannonball Run.
bike. I mean, really, I'd
is.
take that over a concourse any day.
No, you know, you can get potato. It's up to, I guess if I were given the choice, I guess with BMW, I've only ever felt a grunting BMW with the opposed, or not the opposed. Is it the opposed twin?
Yeah, the Boxer twin.
The Boxer twin. And, I'm more of a fan, if it's going to be this, it's going to be the Flying Brick. I feel like that's a smoother operation.
Well, I mean, the straight six is smooth.
That's going to be butter.
And tons of power. I mean, you get what you pay for. I mean, I've definitely used their jog dial interface. I've test ridden an R1200 RT. When you rode Neil's bike, he's got an R1200 RT. The jog dial on the left hand side.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you played with that, but I mean, it's really a well-designed bike and intuitive. And if you...
Well, the automatic windshield alone is pretty much amazing.
And electronic suspension and trash. I mean, it's got everything. You pay for it, but, that's what BMW is known for.
Yeah. And this in particular, it's going to be a comfortable bike. It's beautiful. It's something that I would consider in my retirement if I don't get myself a vintage like Pacific Coast.
Oh, yeah. The...
Yeah.
Here's the other bike I want if I don't get a Kawasaki Versys is the F800 GT.
Now that is a sport touring machine in nimble profile.
Yeah,
just gorgeous.
Yeah, I mean it's the same, parallel twin 800 from the GS, the 800 GS, 800R, but full-ish fairing, most of a fairing. If it's a full fairing.
It's got kind of a half bite to it. It's got the skirt.
The windshield and, that awesome BMW luggage with the shelf in it where it's like a lot of people don't like the clamshell. They prefer the top-loading luggage. But the BMW clamshells are nice because there's a ledge inside the inside. So like you can just set everything on the ledge in the bag and then close it. So the bottom of the bag sticks out all the way. And,
yeah, I think I saw a photo of that once.
Yeah. And then it has the belt drive. Actually, the belt drive that was designed initially for my bike, the F650 CS. So the single-sided aluminum swing arm with the pulley drive, which is integrated. They did a way better job with this, with the styling, the way the exhaust is upswept, and with the 5-lug wheel attachment. So
better clearance for sure.
Well, it gives you that floating rear wheel with the single-sided swing arm look. That you get that floating rear wheel. And it comes with heated grips. It comes with ABS. It comes with a center stand. So that's, really the bags are an option because, BMW, it's an option. It's always an option.
Yeah, but as far as like the clamshell thing is concerned, I got to say that it's like if I can get those off of the bike easily and I can get to my hotel room bed and put it on the bed and open it up like a normal suitcase, I don't really need top loading.
Yeah, I mean, really, anything you're going to want to have instant access to is going to be in a tank bag or a top case.
Yeah.
Right. That's not really, in my opinion, IMHO, your mileage may vary, but, here's the other one I really like. We got to. This is also in the genre of adventure sport, the new Yamaha FJ09. So they took the FZ09 platform with that awesome, it was like 890cc something, triple. Which triples, if you've ever ridden a Triumph, are just great. You get the grunt of a twin and the reviness of a 4, and it's really the best of both worlds. So they took the FZ09 sort of Street Fighter concept, gave it another inch of suspension, relaxed the ergos a bit, put a windshield and handguards on it, and I think it looks great. It looks mean. This will go toe to toe with like the Ducati is in the looks department, I think.
Yeah, or more than the Ducati, I would say with the, what do you think it is up against the Super Tenere?
Well, Super Tenere is a different machine. Super Tenere is an adventure bike. The Super Tenere is an adventure. It's got the big front wheel. This is running 17-inch. Like I said, it's basically just an FZ09 that's slightly taller with a windshield and panniers on it.
Which that's actually where I became confused was, so the FJ are the ones that have more of an ADV profile. And the FZs are the ones that are more lower front ends and sport bikes.
Yeah, the FZ is a Street Fighter, where it's like this. That's the thing, though. It's like they call it adventure, but really, the styling looks comparable. They just made like a touring version of the FJ09. I wouldn't even call it adventure styling. That's where the that's
for the FZ series
for the FJ.
Oh, for the FJ.
I wouldn't say it's adventure. It doesn't look adventure. It's angular and pointy, but that's the way the Yamahas look now. That's the way the R1 and the R6 look, and the FZs look like. I think it's just like, we took an FZ09 and we made it a little more comfortable, a little more standard.
It's mostly the front end. That front end really stands tall. That's
yeah,
really
well,
what
exactly. I mean,
sticks out.
that they made a touring version of the FZ, and I think that's it. Like, you want more suspension when you're touring. Yeah, I guess, because look, I mean, the way the exhaust runs underneath it, you're not going to take that thing off road. You couldn't take it. It's got sport rubber on it. It's not, it's like the Versus isn't an off road bike. I've seen guys convert them, but it's really they took their sport bike, they took the Ninja, they took the KZ, or in this case they took the FZ, and they made it more comfortable. They lifted it up, and they're calling it adventure sport, or adventure-ish, because that's the market, because most of the guys who buy those GSs and the adventure bikes ride them on the road. So they're like, well, let's just make road bikes and call them adventure.
Like I said, I like the adventure sport moniker, but it doesn't mean that anybody's going to agree, especially when they actually bill some of those bikes. In fact, they bill that bike as a, quote, sport tourer. So, I have to be open-minded, which I am now, thanks to most of my writers pretty much hammering me in the editing department. The FZ1 though, or the FZ07, even still, I see this bike as something I could ride in long term. I could ride this long distances without a problem. It's really about the body type of the rider. If you're tall, you're going to want more suspension. If you're short, you're going to be just as comfortable on something that's stockier and more race ready.
Yeah, I thought
so to speak.
I thought the FZ was. I mean, it's a gorgeous bike. I mean, we said I wanted the dealer the other day too, and maybe you were looking at me. It was a little too small for
a little bit,
for my
just a little bit,
frame. But I mean, you want like an around town, and it's cheap too. It's like
affordable bikes are always
good. It's like
good.
$6,500. Like it's really good. I mean, the FZ09 looks basically the same. It's just more motor, a little more suspension. I think the components are a little better on the 09, but the 07's a great bike.
Now I want to talk about this bike in semi-passing because, quite frankly, I find it greatly intimidating in a beautiful, beautiful way. We're looking at the Super 10 Array, the 2015 Super 10 Array. I don't know how many cc's this bike is.
1,200.
1,200 cc's. This one has a winch. It has a winch on its butt end. It seems to have been disconnected or it's missing its cover. But the fact of the matter is, this thing exists. And I'm not, I don't think that winch exists to protect the bike. I think that winch exists for the bike to help. This bike
to pull lesser bikes out of the mud.
Yeah, this bike could do it. This bike could probably pull a small log, if not at least provide a car with enough stability to drag itself out and in reverse. Just to think that, okay, this bike is so girthy and meaty that we're going to add an XT17 rear winch to its to the subframe, not any kind of the hull, just the subframe where the top case goes. That is
that might be like a marketing gimmick. I don't know if I try to pull a bike out with the electric winch mounted to my rear luggage.
Pull somebody skiing. I'm going to pull you skiing.
It's like,
you just get in the water.
This has a 30-pound max weight limit. Let's pull something on it with a winch. But
So I guess one question comes to mind is that so has any other bike ever done that? Has anybody ever said you can get a winch for this bike?
Well, yeah, I saw. So I was whipping through. Was it Cycle Trader, maybe Craigslist, and I found. It was not the right bike. It was a Buell. Not the Ulysses, but the X12 Buell. So like. Now
we're not talking about the Harley manufacturer Buell.
Yeah,
we're
talking the Harley manufacturer Buell.
Okay, not Eric Buell Racing.
Yeah, close to 2000. It's like one of the old Buell sport bikes. The not the Fireblade. The non-XB, the non-X Ulysses, and someone had put like knobbies and a winch and like rally lights on it, and it's like. This bike is low to the ground, man.
Yeah, and same thing with what I'm looking at now, the FJR 1300. I've finally come to coast with the fact that this is kind of like this is the girl that you just you want to make things good with her, but it just isn't a good fit. It's just a beautiful, beautiful machine, a beautiful bike, but at the same time, it's a struggle for even me at the knees. And like I said, I'm not the tallest man in the world. At 5'7", I'm average. But it's like I get my heels up on the pegs there. And yeah, I could see that after probably a solid hour, I'm going to need a break. I'm going to have to stretch. I'm going to have to relax. I'm going to have to take some freaking, what do I got upstairs? What's that supplement I take? It's like
old man, whatever.
old man stuff.
Cialis, is that it?
See, yeah. So I take my Nialis, and then this bike. I love the FJR. I just think I hope that the FJR never ever goes away. But at the same time, for the price and what I think it would do to me physically, I'm not sure I'll ever be able to have that dream, come into play. Still, just an amazing machine that I know I could have a lot of go fast juice on and do what I like to do.
Yeah, I think in the world of the 1200cc sport tour, like we were talking earlier, the ones that say sport tour on the logo that are all big bikes, like this is probably the best handling, and it's definitely sexy.
Yeah, the best looking bike of all.
But yeah, it's the riding position is maybe the tightest compared to like the Concourse or the BMW, or even like the Honda, the ST 1300, which is which is pretty dated
Bertha.
At this point. It's kind of they need to revamp that bike.
They need to get it angry. They need to have it. It needs to go to the gym. Diet and exercise, and it needs to get angry.
Yeah.
And then that bike will be something seriously fearsome. And, at the same time, they could probably keep some of the old parts interchangeable, at least.
Well, the engine's good. I mean, but, beef up the, retune the engine, put a 6-speed transmission, redo the styling on the ST 1300. I think that'd be an amazing bike. And then it'd really be running with the FJR and the Concourse. But they're making lots of money selling 500s and 300s right now, so...
They don't have to care.
They don't have to care. They're selling cheap bikes cheap and selling a lot of them. So
now we got this FZ09 I'm looking at, and the FZ09, fantastic ride.
Yeah, that was we kind of talked about it when we were looking at the FJ because they're more or less the same bike.
It looks like their answer to the KTMs. I mean, it's sort of like they know KTM's doing well. They know they'll never be KTM, but at least they can provide something that's formidable.
Yeah, or like the GSX F or whatever, that Street Fighter Suzuki. Because I mean, people like that. Yamaha's been doing this. The FZs have been immensely popular, since they came out because they look tough and they have a more comfortable Street Fighter.
They are tough.
They got that Street
bikes.
Fighter riding position where it's like it's basically a standard motorcycle sort of riding position, but with sport bike inherited performance. And
yeah, it's amazing what you can do with visual ergonomics while maintaining comfortable ergonomics.
Yeah, like it looks fast, but when you sit on it, you're like, oh, wow, this is like upright, and like my knees aren't bent too tight, and it's comfy, and I could totally rock this.
And then this with the right now, what is this? The F is that?
That's
I see an R on there.
Is that the R6 or the R1?
The R1. Okay, yeah. Now that's a standard, and that is another example of a bike that is basically saying, we know you want to feel some forward motion. You could probably do just about anything you want with it. You could probably get some luggage going. You could get risers if you want a more comfortable position. You could put some clip-ons if you want to get really, well, not clip-ons, but you could definitely throw different bars on there if you want to get more forward. And It's an all-around attack bike of sorts.
Yeah, I think this might be the R6 because that was just but that's in that realm too. It's like the VFR. Or the Ninja, where it's like that mid-size sport bike's got a fairing, but it's got regular handlebars, not clip-ons. It's not super tight tuck, and you can throw some luggage on and make that a mid-size sport tour. And I really wish that the manufacturers sort of that they offered a luggage option for those, or that was
thank goodness for Twisted Throttle has our back. They'll probably develop something. I was so happy. That's a whole different topic. I'll go right up as soon as it's installed. But the fact that they actually provided me with an opportunity to get the luggage that I want for a bike that they no longer manufacture the mounting hardware for, Twisted Throttle really came through on it. I bet you they probably do it for this as well.
Yeah, well, we have to remember too, Twisted Throttle is an importer. Like that, they this stuff exists in Europe, but
of course,
it's not a Harley, so they don't sell it here.
But now we're looking at this FZ1, same deal. I just think that's another bike where it's like This is really the threshold where you can be in a standard position profile with a meaty engine and warp space and time, as my friend Domino would say.
Yeah, I think this is definitely in the same category-ish as like the Super Duke, like that big displacement Street Fighter. Just like
this guy's a half fairing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's got a little more fairing on it because it's a fast bike, and it's the sportier thing, which I think makes sense because like who wants to go 90 miles an hour without a little bit of Lexan in front of them, sending the wind over their helmet, just hanging on for dear life.
Legs in the air. feet behind the
so I
bike.
think that's sort of where they're going with that. Yamaha maybe has a little more sense.
Well, I do feel like with this bike, it makes me want to massage the curves. With the Dukes and the with the Dukes and the 990s and the
Looks like
Jello
them Duke
pudding.
boys got themselves in a whole heap of trouble.
Whenever I see a KTM street bike that isn't fully faired, I see a bike that I really just want to like ride into a curb as hard as possible, and it's not going to do any damage to the bike. It looks like a fighter, whereas this bike looks more like a pavement romance machine. It's a little bit more better lines in my mind. It's a little bit less jagged. Sure.
It's the Japanese versus the Austrians.
Yeah, yeah. And then this thing.
Oh, the CTX.
Oh my goodness, what a bike! The CTX. It's like this bike. This is an oddity that it really does have a following, though. They just don't know it yet. So I have this friend he is a cruiser guy, and that's cool. The cruiser people, I got nothing but love for you. Just not my thing, and that's just how that is. My buddy is a cruiser man, but he's always wanted something that looked a little bit more racy, I would say. And so he looked at like the new Gold Wings that are going after the bagger demographic, and he thought about that, and he even looked at a couple of sport tours. But it's like, I personally even see him as just enjoy your cruiser, get comfortable, enjoy being low and cushy, and just riding around doing your thing. And then I came across this a Honda CTX, and it is quite frankly bizarre. It's a cruiser profile motorcycle with basically a sport touring fairing, or it's a full fairing cruiser that doesn't have the same, what would you say? It doesn't have the same dimensions. It has a much more sporty profile to it.
What this reminds me of is like the DN01, the lines, or even the PC 800.
Don't even get me started on that freak show.
That whatever they have that's almost actually like the DN01 now, that's super ugly. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, just wrong.
That, like, split fork front fairing.
We call it incorrect, is what we call it.
But yeah, well, this is funny. So the CTX actually, it has the same engine as the NC 700. So it's the laid down parallel twin.
Laid down. Okay, so it's
so the twin leans forward. It's
the cylinders are parallel to the ground.
Ish. They're not quite parallel to the ground, but they're laid forward. So that's why on the NC, which kind of has like I guess we could call it adventure sport. It's not very sporty. It has an adventure bike styling with road wheels. It's more of a standard in the modern style. But it has that stow bay where it has like where the gas tank normally would be. There's just a big open area where you like it'll hold a full face helmet because the engine is cantered forward.
That's like your bike.
Similar to my bike. And then the gas tank is under the seat. Though with the NC, the filler cap is under the pillion seat, which I think is a dumb idea because then you can't strap anything down to the pillion seat.
Well, how does that tie back to the CTX?
Oh, so it's the same. It's the same engine anyway.
Okay, all right. And so is it inline? Is it an inline twin?
It's a parallel twin. It's a parallel twin that's canted forward like 70 degrees or something like that. But it's also it's made in the same. Those engines are cast in the same factory that cast the Honda Fit engine, which is an inline 4. It's basically just half a Honda Fit engine that's canted forward. And like a car engine, it's under square, which is weird. Like so, most motorcycle engines are over square, where the stroke is shorter than the bore is wide. On these, it's the other way. So the stroke is longer than the bore is wide.
So it's basically popping up like a freaking groundhog.
Yeah, so it's like this. There's more throw in there, so it's super torquey, but it only revs to like 6,500. Like it's really short revved.
Wow.
You can't rev it up high because of how far the pistons have to move. So it's it kind of drives more like a car. And then actually this engine and the one we're looking at here, if you look at the left foot peg there's no shifter.
Oh, this is automatic.
Yeah, the engine has Honda's dual clutch transmission, which the NC also has. So there's no shifter. You can go in manual mode. I'm doing air quotes, manual mode, and press up down buttons on the left handlebar to shift, or just put it in full automatic. And then there's also like there's a sport mode and a normal mode for the automatic shifting, where the sport revs it out a little bit more. But
I wonder if they offer a shift version.
Yeah, you can get it with a standard transmission.
Nice. That's a good
Yeah,
start.
which I
at least.
think, and at least on the used market for the NC, I think those have been much more popular, at least in the United States.
The luggage even the luggage has a little bit of, they've put it probably in just the right position where you can't really quite decide whether or not we're dealing with a cruiser and bagger luggage, or if we're dealing with sort of like an almost Goldwing sport bike.
Yeah, which actually I think, and I think this has a wide appeal for people who are maybe older and getting back into bikes, or getting the bikes, like the midlife crisis guy who's got some sense. And the midlife crisis guy who's not going to go drop 18 grand on a Harley or buy a Busa and kill himself.
For people who are just getting a little bit uncomfortable on the bikes they've ridden in the past.
Well, I'm saying someone who's new to motorcycling, because
be a comfortable bike.
It's super, but like you want that cruiser stance, but you don't want a big heavy cruiser. You want a little more comfort, or you want the automatic transmission, or you just like the sort of sport-ish styling. Because that's kind of been a thing too. Kawasaki just came out with the Vulcan S, which actually has the same motor as the Ninja, but it's like a sporty cruiser. Harley's got the new 500 and 700 Street, which are kind of like sportier, lighter, cruiser things, because Americans they like cruisers. That's what the market likes. So the only thing I really don't like about this bike, about the CTX, is it does do a cruiser riding position, but the foot pegs are way out in the middle. And like I'm 6'1", I have a 34-inch inseam, and I think the foot pegs are too far forward. So
this is basically it's basically a brawler, is what it is. It's sort of like you're going to it's as though you're about to go into the mosh pit.
Yeah, what I don't get, let's say you're a shorter rider, or maybe like a female rider has a shorter inseam, and you might be drawn to this bike because of the super low seat height, because it's got that cruiser sort of seat position, but you're not going to be able to reach the foot pegs.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I'll beep this part out, but we have a moniker for that. We call it the tank, basically.
Yeah.
And it's freaking hilarious. All right.
But they also have a very similarly styled bike with the engine from the ST1300.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. So you can get, like, if you like it and you like that cruiser, you want a little more sport, you can get it with the ST1300 V4 engine in it. And have a 1300cc. Only that doesn't have an automatic option because the engine doesn't have a transmission set up for it. But you can get it. You can get the CTX in the 1300.
This is the last bike I got photos of, and this is the Trophy S. I think that they it's as though there are a couple bikes by Trophy that seem to follow suit, and it's not that they necessarily imitate, but they do definitely take some cues. And I guess part of me wishes that wasn't the case.
If this was moving by at 40 miles an hour and didn't say Trophy S on the side,
R1200 RT.
I'd say it looks like an R1200 RT. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see it in the front end, and they've done that a couple of times. So, if you look at the third generation of Bandit before it became the GSX FA, that particular bike had a really sharp combination light. So instead of having an obvious set of eyes on the front, it had a giant knife for a front lamp. And pretty much the day they brought that out, Trophy announced that they were going to develop some bikes, and so the Sprint, the Triumph Sprint, literally, if you put them side by side, the Triumph Sprint, as incredible as that motorcycle is, and as much as I'd probably trade my Bandit for one, it almost looks like a lesser version of the third generation Bandit. And the same thing seemed to happen with the Trophy S here, which I'm telling you, it really just is it's probably a much angrier engine on an R1200 RT, if I could say it that way. And it's like, I think of my friends who own Triumph motorcycles, and they take a lot of pride in those bikes, and I can see why, but it doesn't change the fact that now, having seen this and having seen the Sprint, it's as though Triumph motorcycles remind me of bikes that I'm already more familiar with. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's in the opposite direction.
At least with their touring bikes. I mean, obviously like the Bonneville or the Tiger.
Oh yeah, that's their
own thing, or the Street Triple. And the Speed
Triple's
Triple,
an icon in motorcycles.
Well, and especially with those like the dual headlamps, that look is very signature. But I think too, I mean, if you're in the market for that big displacement sport tourer, I think the Trophy's a viable option too. I mean, it's going to be more comfortable than the FJR or the Concourse. I think it's going to be sportier than the R1200 RT, than the BMW. I think it's just going to feel less, because that, even with the new water cooled boxer engine, that I feel like that always kind of has a bit of a tractor feel to it. That
Yeah.
that twin just always, I mean, it's got tons of torque and that's good, but if you want revvy, I think the trophy's a viable option because you get the wind protection, you get all the bells and whistles that you can get on the other big touring bikes. But it's just something a little bit different, and especially too if you look on the used market, they're out there, and the market isn't as hungry for them. So if they're out there, they're usually less expensive than a comparable BMW or Yamaha.
That brings up a good point. Anybody out there who's listening to this, if you're looking for a particular type of motorcycle, any kind of a filter results within the sport touring market, or even if otherwise, feel free to visit the site at www.theridingobsession.com, and then under services, look for motorcycles for sale, because they link to pre-filtered results on eBay, and that helps us help the site to help you. We also have to be nice to our Triumph owners out there, because we have a couple of friends that ride speed triples, and they're missing some bolts.
The riders, not the bikes. The bikes
are fantastic. Great. It's the riders you got to worry about. One, Mr. John Ravilla of The Seat Guy, John the Seat Guy. Look him up on Google. Fantastic motorcycle seats. But you can just tell if you talk to him, don't look him in the eye too long. You got to be careful about that.
So that's a quick look at our IMS show escapades.
2015 International Motorcycle Show, Chicago at Rosemont. What's it called?
The Donald D. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois.
followed by all kinds of travel havoc trying to get Travis here back home to Madison.
Oh yeah, it's I'm 31 and I remember taking buses in college. Actually, the bus ride was fine. It was just my leaving my bag in my coat in Rich's truck when he left without me. That was bad.
All right. Well, good as always. People, don't forget to visit us online. We could use your support. That's www.theridingobsession.com. I'm Robin Dean.
I'm Travis Burleson.
And we will talk to you again via this podcast in the near future. Have a good one.